quite some time since we've really covered the Paralympics on this show and had a para-athlete on this podcast. And I actually am quite ashamed that it has been taken quite some time because we obviously love talking all aspects of everything to do with Olympics and Paralympics. And today we're rectifying that well because I have such an amazing guest on the program to learn about her journey, not just in one sport, but multiple sports, because she's had an incredible journey across a variety of sports. Started off in badminton, somehow found her way to rowing, and now is on the cusp of making her first Paralympics in the sport of para-triathlon. So it kind of makes sense that maybe she is doing a sport where there are multiple disciplines, because there's obviously a lot of sports that she has been interested in across her career. And this amazing transition into para-triathlon has seen her go on to great success, taking out a silver medal at the World Championships in 2023, as well as winning the Paris Paralympic test event. And I'm so excited to learn everything about her and her journey to this very big point that we are about to see heading into an Olympic year. It is a pleasure to welcome to Off the Podium Anu Francis. Anu, first of all, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
I am so intrigued about your journey, how you can get from badminton to para-triathlon. I mean, it's a bit of a difference, but you just seem to be such a sporty person. This seems to be such a part of your life that you've always been into sport, because they're not even the only three that you've been involved in, are they? I know you've been involved in pretty much every single sport, I think, in existence in your life.
Well, I think there's still a few left on the list that I need to tick off. But yeah, I guess it's not the most linear sort of progression that I've had in terms of sports. Obviously, there's not a lot of common ground between badminton and triathlon. But essentially, like growing up, I was pretty sporty. Running was actually my thing as a kid. I kind of jumped between sprinting and long distance, depending on sort of the season and the year and what I was feeling. Really, really liked it. But then around 11, I started finding that my kneecaps, so my patella, started subluxing, and eventually went on to actually dislocating, and you could quite visibly see that it wasn't where it was meant to be. So I would be doing cross country, and I have distinct memories of maybe year 5 or 6 and running along, and my kneecap would be sitting not where it was meant to be, and I'd kind of just casually bend over mid-race, knock it back and keep going. And I thought that was normal. I just thought that everyone was doing that.
Jeez, wow.
Not normal.
No.
And I pretty much with that, it just started deteriorating. I was having more dislocations. It became to be my ankles and wrists and every other sort of joint you can imagine. And so I began to just get less and less competitive with my kind of peers of my own age. And I just thought that I was a bit uncoordinated, even though I was pretty good when I was a bit younger. But yeah, sort of from the age of like 11 to 13, I had a pretty big decline. And yeah, just thought, I'm just clumsy. Like maybe I'm not meant to be doing much sport anymore. So I kind of peeled it back a bit. And then a friend actually got me into badminton in year 5, just recreationally. She was going after school and I was going around to her house. So she was like, oh, come around, have a go at badminton. And it was something I was just naturally pretty good at, which was pretty lucky. So I sort of kept that going right through to the end of year 12, not really training seriously, but would just do, the sort of inter-school competitions, and yeah, did pretty well for the amount of training I was doing. Then I went into veterinary medicine, which was pretty full time, didn't have a lot of time for sport. So I kept fit we had a gym on campus out at the Roseworthy campus. So kept pretty fit there, did some boxing, did their running club there, and kind of kept my fitness up, but took a bit of a backseat. And it wasn't until my second year that I finally got diagnosed with my first condition, which was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a degenerative connective tissue disorder, which explains all of the dislocations. It's quite common for that to start around puberty and sort of progressively get worse through your kind of adolescence. So that explained that. And unfortunately, because of that diagnosis, I was told that I wouldn't get registered as a vet because they generally don't register anyone with any physical or mental impairments, which is, in my opinion, it's discrimination. But it was inherent requirements. And so even though I was, one of the top students and was getting great feedback on my placements, I finished my undergrad, but didn't go into my postgrad because it was just going to be another 3 years of study after already doing 3. Most likely, I was told by the Rego board I wouldn't get registered, so I wouldn't actually be able to practice. So at that point, that's when I actually went and looked back into sport, because I thought, oh, well, if I'm too disabled to be able to be a vet, am I, disabled enough, in quotations, to do para sport? Because I sort of just thought, who do I know with disabilities? And really the only positive role models that I could think of in society with disabilities were Paralympians and para athletes. And so, yeah, long story short, I had a look at what sports are available, and I found a para badminton group in SA. Went and joined that and got classified and managed to work my way up. And in my second year, I medalled twice for Australia at the Oceania Champs. And through that, realised I actually had a neurological condition as well. And that's what actually made me eligible for parasport, because Ehlers-Danlos is actually not an eligible impairment. And that took a lot of misdiagnosis, but through sport, we actually found out that it was a 1 in a million condition called dopa-responsive dystonia. So quite similar to Parkinson's. I take Parkinson's medication, causes like really tight muscles and involuntary muscle movements and some sort of, restricted movement and muscle power in all 4 of my limbs, but primarily my legs and my left hand. Through that kind of ended up wanting to take sport more seriously, got identified for para rowing, learnt to row from scratch at the end of 2018. Narrowly missed out on Tokyo because the classification criteria is quite loose in rowing, and there's only actually 3 classifications. So everyone that uses their legs are together, regardless of whether they have at a national level an intellectual impairment, or if they have, I think, 3 fingers or 3 toes is like the minimum impairment. But we had people with like a wrist fusion, a single leg like amputee was like one of the more impaired, and then there was me, and the international classifier said I was the most impaired one on the international circuit. So I was so close to the other girls, but I just missed out by a few seconds, which was disappointing. But luckily enough, I got talent identified by triathlon through Triathlon Australia, now Oz Triathlon, kind of got into that 3 years ago, and the rest is history, really.
What? I mean, so much to unpack there. I've got so many questions. Like, you've done my job very well for me right now by answering a lot of questions I had. But I just want to backtrack just to that initial, the dislocating of the knees and everything you're saying with the running, and that obviously at the time you just thought that was normal and clumsy, to ultimately getting diagnosed. Were there any ever tests at a young age, or was it literally, as you said, like, I just thought this was normal, so we don't need to check into this? Because I can imagine your parents and your family are probably thinking, well, hey, no, this isn't normal. We should probably look into this.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot. So I think pretty much from, like I said, the age of 11, we just started realizing things weren't quite right. And especially, one day I woke up and my ankle was dislocated, and was really, really bruised and swollen. And normally I was able to, with my kneecaps, I could generally kind of fix it myself. But this ankle was so bad that I didn't know how to start it, kind of fixing it. So we went up to the hospital, got it x-rayed and everything. They fixed it up and said, oh, how did this happen? And I said, oh, I just woke up and it was like that. And they went, no, like, seriously, what have you done? And I went, no, seriously, I woke up like that.
Wow.
Didn't do anything. And that kind of kept happening. It was just that, oh, what have you done this time? And I was like, I was walking, or I woke up, or I was just like sitting on the couch, all that sort of stuff. And they actually ended up questioning whether I just lived with my mum, whether I was being abused at home, and whether this was being inflicted on me, which is really, really common with people with Ehlers-Danlos. Especially it's getting a lot more. It's not even considered rare anymore. When I was diagnosed, it was 1 in 5,000, but now it's about 1 in 2,500, but it's still very underdiagnosed. So it's really actually quite common. But it was very not understood. And that's why my diagnosis took so long, because we went to, I swear, every specialist under the sun when I was growing up. Things like I couldn't sit on the floor my whole childhood, like all through primary school. It was, sitting on the floor was so painful. And again, I just thought that everyone had that, and that I was just weak, and I wasn't as good at coping with the pain as all of them. And until we realized that actually my pelvis had been out of alignment probably my whole childhood.
Wow.
And that's why I'd been in so much pain that time. And I think now that I've got the right specialists on board and people that, amazing physios and exercise physiologists and neurologists who know how to manage those conditions, it's so frustrating that my whole childhood I just lived in so much, like I still have pain all the time, but in so much less pain than that I did back then. And we've been able to stabilize my joints to have less dislocations. And it could have been so much better if I could have actually got diagnosed at a younger age. But unfortunately, there was just a lot of sort of ignorance, I think, from doctors and a lot of egos going around sort of saying, well, we don't know what this is, so therefore you must be making it up. They always told mum I was a hypochondriac, to the point where I think eventually she ended up believing that because my scans would all come back, normal, and there was not really, they just said it was growing pains and she'll grow out of it. And then, when I didn't, it wasn't actually until I was at college and the girl in the room next to me was one of my best mates. Her mum was a nurse and had a friend, long story, whose son got diagnosed over in Sydney, where there's a few more kind of geneticists over there that know about EDS. And she was talking to my friend's mum about it, and my friend's mum went, "It sounds so much like I knew," and sent my friend in with a web page about it from the Yearless Down Loss Society. And I just read through it and went, "This is a page about me." Like it was all the symptoms, like the age of onset was right, all about the going to hospital and kids actually being taken off their parents because they think they're being abused, and they don't believe the child saying that they just woke up like that. It was incredible. So I went to the geneticist 3 months later, and he went, "Yeah, that is the most obvious diagnosis ever. How is this? And I was 21. He was like, "How have you gone 10 years with symptoms of not being diagnosed?" So it's one of, I think it's been quoted as one of the most common and overlooked disorders in medical history.
That's crazy. And I mean, it must have been such a relief to finally, after all that time, have it, I guess, confirmed, diagnosed, and then that treatment and everything that I'm sure kind of came from that, you were able to finally do.
It was huge. Like, I think you go through different stages with diagnosis, and every time I've got a new one, it's kind of, you go through grief and that sort of stuff and thinking about the future. But I think with that diagnosis, it was just an overwhelming sense of relief and just validation that, I literally thought I was a hypochondriac and I was crazy and all this sort of stuff, because that's what I've been told by, every doctor I'd seen, until finally I just, got that diagnosis and found a community of people that had been through, very similar things to me. And I think it really just made me want to share my story and get it out there to try and hopefully help other people get diagnosed earlier, and just get the awareness out there with the medical profession, not to overlook the conditions just because they might be a bit rarer or a bit of stigma around them.
When it came to that talent identification, when you decided to pursue this sporting career, is that a case of, do you contact the AIS? Like, I mean, kind of like how does that work? And because I know we've had a lot of, say, winter athletes on this show who will get talent identified for certain winter sports. Is it a similar thing for para athletes to kind of, put you through a variety of tests and then you get a letter in the mail going, "Hey, rowing, hey, triathlon"?
That'd be really cool. The way that I actually found rowing was very random, because I love badminton, potentially could have made the Tokyo Paralympics, but there was no funding available at all. And so it was fully self-funded, and I just couldn't, being from like a, single income, like low income family, just with my mum and I couldn't afford to get to all the international tournaments to qualify. And I just wanted to take sport more seriously than training, the sort of 2 times a week that we were offered. And so I took it upon myself to start. I went to the local gym, like I ended up doing 10, just group classes every week. And that kind of really built my foundation. And then I was just on Instagram one day and found a para rowing talent search day down at West Lakes where we row. And I just signed up for it, went along, didn't know if I'd be eligible or if I'd be any good. I'd never rowed before. But yeah, I went along, and I was specifically looking for females to fill the boat, because it's like a mixed floor was the Tokyo boat, and they had a couple of boys, Will and Jed. So they were just looking for a couple of females to sort of fill up that boat. And so, yeah, went along, and I think my fitness that I'd got from going to the gym had kind of paid off, and they identified that while I wasn't yet the strongest person in the world, I had the kind of the fitness, the base there. And so, yeah, they were willing to to give me a shot. So I went on training agreement with the South Australian Sports Institute and trained with them for a couple of years, became the first female para-athlete to ever row for South Australia. So we had a full state team for the first time in history, which was, pretty special, and set some world records on the indoor rowing machine over COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then when I kind of saw that just wasn't quite going my way with the classification, just always being sort of disadvantaged, and knew I'd push my body to the point where I was just getting constantly injured trying to get there, and I wanted it so badly. I started looking at other sports, and my coach at the time was really supportive of that, and sort of knew that my goal was the Paralympics, and if that wasn't going to happen with rowing, then she was amazing and really supportive in me exploring other options. So I had a look at the list again, went back to the list that I'd found when I decided to go with badminton originally, reconsulted that, and I taught myself to cycle during COVID when we couldn't get out in the water because all the rowers were out cross training on the bike. So bought myself this crappy $300 bike off Gumtree and taught myself to ride, and realized I quite enjoyed it. Got in contact with Cycling Australia, and they put me in touch with a para coach who was doing some stuff at the velodrome, so track cycling. Went along and did that, and he was like, yeah, you could definitely be, pretty good at this, which was cool. So did that for a little bit. Also reached out to triathlon. I could obviously run. I could now ride a bike, but I could not swim. So I was very upfront with them and just sort of, that was, Carla, the head of our program. And I just said, look, dude, like, I'm willing to try. Like, my goals are pretty lofty, but I cannot swim.
What does he say to that? Like, well, choose a different sport. Like, this might not be for you.
That's what I thought he was going to say. No, he was amazingly positive and said, you can't learn to swim overnight, but it could happen. And he's pretty amazing at in terms of profiling people up. He'd found a bunch of background information off me. I don't know how he got all this information, but he was very clued up on sort of my sport history and sort of what my goals were. And we just had some really open chats. And he was so honest with me and sort of said, look, this could go absolutely nowhere. We can't give you really any financial support, and it's probably going to be a couple of years of you having to completely support yourself, and you're going to have to be in the pool like every day trying to learn how to swim from scratch. It's not going to come easy. But he said, if you're willing to put in the work, then we're willing to kind of give you a go. And he just sort of said, like, I think you have the potential to kind of reach your goals in this sport. So I kind of had to make that decision between the two, and went into SASI one day, and they kind of made the call that they weren't going to renew my contract for the next year. And so I was kind of like pretty devastated, but I think it was what I needed, because I was so invested in rowing and I loved it so much. And I loved my club and all of the athletes I was rowing with that I don't think I would have left of my own accord. So I think it was really them kind of, snapping that band that sort of made me go, right, well, there's no point in me staying here because my goal is the Paralympics. So if that's not going to happen here, then I've got these amazing other doors. That classic one door closes and another opens. I was lucky that I had two doors that sort of opened up. I ultimately that day went to gym, and my coach up at the Flinders Uni gym where I was in the athlete development program, Chris, he'd been my coach for a few years since I was with badminton all through rowing, doing my S&C program up there. And he said, oh, well, actually, I did get a bit of a phone call from Triathlon Australia asking if I'd be willing to take you on. I didn't even realize, but he was an ex-triathlete and runs a triathlon squad, which I didn't actually know about. And I don't know how they knew about that, but the magic of networking.
Yeah.
Apparently they'd reached out to him and said, oh, if she does want to transfer, would you be willing to coach her? And he said, absolutely. So we had a good chat, and I was like, right, yep, let's give it a go. So the next day we rocked up to the pool, and he said, cool, just show me 25 meters of freestyle, show me what you've got. And I just looked at him blankly and said, nope. I'm serious, I can't swim 25 meters. And he went, oh, yep, okay, we are starting from scratch. And I was like, I did warn everyone, I was quite transparent. So he's done an amazing job though. It was definitely felt like drowning for the first few weeks. And I look back at the videos that I excitedly sent Carl going, look, I got to the other side of the 25 meter pool. And he was like, yeah, keep trying, mate. They'll be
Wow.
dragging along the bottom of the floor. Yeah, 3 years later, I'm yeah, like a pretty confident swimmer. Still a long way to go, but we always sort of said it was going to be 3 years before I was looking like a swimmer, and now I'm finally at the point where people look at me and I don't look like I've only been swimming for 3 years, which is pretty cool. I'm very lucky to have had such an amazing and patient coach.
Which I love just that story because it goes from right back to rowing of you didn't know how to row, but you did it and there you are. And then you didn't know how to swim and now you're doing triathlon. Like it's just such an incredible journey and going through so much adversity to get to where you are. And there always seems to be a challenge going on there. But I mean, it's incredible that you've overcome it. Did you sort of, when you were running and everything, you talk about that dream of the Paralympics, has that something been with you ever since you were younger, that sort of an Olympics, a Paralympics, sort of back when you were sort of younger competing in sport before diagnoses and all those sort of things had been come?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think with the Paralympics, it didn't, just because I wasn't diagnosed until I was 21. And so I never viewed myself as obviously having a disability because I thought I was just crazy. And so, which I think is also like really, that's quite upsetting because I think I look now at the amazing opportunities for kids with disabilities, and you know the amazing opportunities they get, especially through sport. And I go, oh, like I wish I'd known back then that maybe, and maybe I wouldn't have been eligible because the EDS obviously isn't classifiable, but maybe I could have just met other kids that had, you know, similar experiences to me, or maybe my neurological condition would have been picked up a bit earlier back then as well. So I think, yeah, it's an interesting one because I don't think I ever thought I'd be an Olympian. I think probably because my athletic ability was hindered so early. And so I think I always loved sport, and I always probably, yeah, sort of thought, oh, I'd love to just be a really fast runner. And I remember in primary school, in like early primary school, we marked out for maths, we marked out a 1 kilometer running track, and every week we'd go and run it, and we'd have our group of friends and we'd track their time and graph it. It was very, very clever exercise. But I remember doing that, and I'd always be by far the fastest girl in the class. And that's probably when I realized, oh, I've got this talent. But then obviously a few years later, the conditions started progressing, and I think that's when that dream just sort of disappeared, and yeah, it didn't reappear until I started doing para sport.
Why isn't EDS classifiable as a Paralympic sport?
Yeah, essentially every sport is different, but I'm pretty sure EDS is blacklisted in general from all of them. And that is because it doesn't lead to what they call eligible impairments. So each sport will have a different list of eligible impairments, but most sports it'll be, like amputation or like loss of motor control, loss of muscle power, loss of range of motion, all those sort of factors. And EDS generally doesn't lead to any of them. So EDS will generally have low muscle tone, but they do. I think there's some conditions where they do allow low muscle tone to be classified, but EDS isn't one of those because it's generally, I think, not low enough to consistently kind of affect your performance. And I think because it's just so variable, and I guess, it just would be quite hard. And I also just think that there'd be so many people. If you allow people with EDS to compete, it's because it's not even rare anymore. Like there'd be a lot of people. But yeah, that's how I've always kind of explained it, is that it just doesn't lead to those eligible impairments. And when I was doing badminton, obviously I went in just saying I had EDS. But they were saying, oh no, you've got something else. And, my left hand was sort of curl round in the way that an athlete was with cerebral palsy would normally sort of have. And they would call it my cerebral palsy arm. And I was like, but I don't have cerebral palsy. I've just got EDS. And I had to explain to them that my muscles were tight because they were trying to compensate for my ligaments and being too lax. So they were trying to protect the joints and hold them in place. That's what I was always kind of told was why I had high muscle tone rather than low muscle tone. But it turns out that the reason I was eligible was actually because I had an underlying neurological condition. And that's what was causing the eligible impairments, which for me are that high muscle tone, the incoordination, loss of power, loss of range of motion, and those sort of impairments. But there has been a bit of a push from athletes with EDS for it to be recognized. But it's one of those things I don't think it will sort of anytime soon.
And in terms of then the neurological condition, because obviously, as we know with a lot of Paralympic sports, there are still a variety of classifications that still fall into that. So do you then have to, I guess, do you submit your condition to the International Like, how does that come about, and how do you then get classified so you know come Paris what you're trying to qualify, what classification you're trying to qualify for?
Yeah. So it's all done well ahead of time of Paris. Because there were stories of I think up to the London Games where you could get classified sort of your final classification at the Paralympics, and then some people would end up being moved classes, days before a race, or they'd end up being actually declassified before a race, which is obviously a big upset for everyone.
Yeah.
So they've tried to avoid that now, where your classification has to be completely finalized before you go into the games, which is great. And so again, for each sport, it's been different. For rowing, I actually was incorrectly diagnosed as having cerebral palsy, because that was the second set of classifiers that had said to me, "Oh, it looks like cerebral palsy." It does look like, from the outside, people always sort of ask me, "Do you have cerebral palsy?" Quite a similar sort of gait pattern. And so I went to a neurologist based on that, because they couldn't classify me until I actually had a diagnosis. So I went to a neurologist, and he went, "Yep, more than happy with that diagnosis. That makes sense to me." Did some scans, and the MRI showed up some brain lesions, but not where you'd expect for cerebral palsy. But he went, "I think that's still the best diagnosis." And that got me through with rowing. And the way that happens is you submit your medical documentation, but then you also do a lot of physical tests. For someone with like an amputation, it's a lot simpler. They kind of just show them the x-rays, or most cases, if there's no other impairments, it's sort of, cool, that's this classification. Whereas neurological, for me, my classifications have gone for up to 4 hours. And it's normally
4 hours.
4 hours. And
Damn.
you're physically cooked. And then you have to, normally as part of your classification, you have to race the next day. And that's just to kind of make sure that what they've seen in testing then translates out to the field and is sort of what they'd expect. And so, I would just be absolutely cooked. If I would do my classification, I would actually get like full body muscle spasms, which is part of my dystonia. And so I would end up being absolutely wrecked come race day, because the whole night I'd be up with these muscle spasms from the effects of, having to push yourself so hard in classification. And it's quite interesting, because I've had my athletics done twice, and theirs is a lot less invasive. They do obviously your manual muscle testing for your strength and your range of motion, and they do watch you, do some jumps and running and that sort of stuff. But both times they've classified me very consistently without me having to be physically exerted, and it's taken half an hour max. Whereas rowing was very intense, and triathlon's even more intense. That's been very similar. My last one was quite quick, but the one before that was 4 hours again. And I had to ride a bike, I had to run, I had to go to a pool, and had to, walk, do all of the manual muscle testing. They wanted to actually see the effect of fatigue. So they were really trying to fatigue my muscles as well, which is quite traumatic. And then you've got to do a full race the next day. So my first couple of years of triathlon were really hard, because I had to get classified a few times. As normally you'll get put on a provisional to start with, and then you'll get put onto a review status, and then they'll check you again in like 6 months or a year or whatever the date is to check that they've kind of got you in the right spot. And then I also had the situation where I went along to my provisional, and my first one were all kind of consistent as a PTS2, which is the most impaired standing. But then I went along to my first international, I think it was my first international, and they put me as a PTS3 by 2 points, which is then not a Paralympic event this year or next year. And we were just like, well, how's this happened? I've been PTS2 consistently and safely a PTS2. How have I ended up as a PTS3? And it turns out there was some points that weren't added up quite right. But mostly it was because they hadn't considered any of my muscle and coordination, because they just didn't have the right box for it. Whereas in things like cycling and athletics, there's a specific box for essentially dystonia. Whereas for triathlon, there wasn't that box. And so all of my muscle and coordination, which is a lot of my impairment, actually wasn't taken into consideration until we went and got further documentation to show that essentially that needs to be taken into consideration. Got all of that sorted, had to go over the other side of the world to Wales last year to get my classification redone because I just knew that I wasn't a PTS3. Went along to that classification. They redid all of the testing, looked at my documentation, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, you're right in the middle of PTS2. Like you're nowhere near PTS3," which was a huge relief. It took like an hour max, sort of thing. And yeah, Carl came in with me, and we were both just like, "God, what a roller coaster!" And so I got moved down to PTS2 for the next day, and that's when really my career kind of took off because I could finally start.
So you knew at that point then, and then that obviously, as you were saying, leads then to knowing that that's an event at the Paralympics. That it's not that one. What it's just
and the main thing with that is that it not being a Paralympic event was that there's no funding because they were allowing five PTS3 women, so the top 5 would go over to Paris, but they'd be racing against the PTS4 athletes.
Right.
So they'd be going upper class. And we thought, I'm probably still competitive with the PTS3s. I could, because it is a less competitive field at the moment because it's not a Paralympic event. So we thought, maybe I can still compete. But then Triathlon Australia just weren't sure if that would get me any funding. And that just brings up the whole, I can't afford to go to these races and I can't afford to qualify sort of scenario again. So we were very lucky. And I think as soon as I got classified, it was just, I know Carl described me in my first race the next day where I came second against a pretty big field. He just said, she's a firecracker that we've been sitting on for 2 years, and finally she was ready and we could let her off. And it was so exciting because I think finally I could just focus on my performance rather than all the stress of classification and having to then eventually get re-diagnosed because in my first classification, one of the classifiers was someone that classified me in rowing a few years ago, and he went, "Your condition has progressed so much. Like you've got physically stronger and fitter, but I can see your condition's degenerated. It's clearly not cerebral palsy because that doesn't deteriorate." So I had to go and find another neurologist and one that specialized in rarer conditions. And it was him that went, it's actually this 1 in a million condition, which is why no one will have ever seen it before. So it's kind of crazy. It's a crazy story that classification was such a nightmare, but it's actually what led to me getting diagnosed. And maybe without sport, I may never have actually known what that diagnosis was and wouldn't have been medicated, which does slow the progression of the condition. So hopefully is increase my quality and sort of length of life.
Well, that's all the positives there. I mean, absolutely, to kind of have that there. And then an added positive, no pun intended, silver lining is getting that silver medal then at the World Championships, which, if I'm not mistaken, so it wasn't, they had to cancel the bike leg, so then they therefore make it, is it called an aquathon?
Aquathlon. Yeah. Aquathlon. So that was at Swansea. So I went over this year. I went overseas for 3 months. Did my first race in July in Swansea. So that was my first race from last year. So back in Wales. There was gale force winds. We almost got blown off our bikes the day before for the course recon, and it was not safe, like bucketing down, white caps on the water. And so they made the call the night before that it was going to have to be an aquathlon, which I'd never done before, which is literally, they just cut the bike. So you do the swim and then you just go straight to the run. So it's quite a short race. And the bike is sort of where I really make my mark. I'm the fastest on the bike at the moment. So that's where I kind of catch up from the fact that I'm not the fastest at the swim. So without having that, I came out of the water. There was 4 in our field. I came out of the water last, had no idea how far up the road the others were, just had to run blind and try and find them, and managed to run down the first athlete in, I think it was the third of 3 laps. I think the start of that lap, I managed to catch her because I was just going, far out, I'm going to come 4th. Like I came 2nd here last year. What am I doing? And so finally caught her and then got myself into 3rd and then literally hit the 2nd athlete to get into the silver medal position on the blue carpet. And so it was then a sprint finish. I got past her quite comfortably and then suddenly realized she was coming for me. And I just felt her almost tap my shoulder. And I looked over and went, "Whoa!" And so had to just floor it for the last few meters. We've got this amazing video of us just pounding down this this line, and they recorded it as 1 second, but it was probably less than a second for me to get that silver medal. So that was pretty incredible. And then at the test event the next month, it got turned on the day to a duathlon because of water. There was some water pollution in the Seine. And so we ended up doing a run, bike, run, which is much more my forte. Just cut out my weakness. And so I managed to win that. And then the next month we had World Championships, which was amazing because we had for the first time the complete PTS2 women's field were there. So most likely everyone that would be there in Paris was there. So it was kind of a bit of a dress rehearsal. And we got the full triathlon, which was incredible. And I managed to get second place and was only I think 21 or 22 seconds behind the world champion who's someone I have only ever beaten in the duathlon. So that was an awesome experience.
And tell us about her, because I want to know who we've got to beat in Paris. I know we need to learn more about your rival here so we can get ourselves ready.
So it's quite interesting. The three most competitive athletes, the only ones who have ever beaten me, are three American ladies.
I was going to say, are they American? Because I'm looking at the medal tally from the Paralympics, and it seems that this is America's event.
America is definitely dominating the triathlon. They have done for a little while. It's literally those three ladies. So we've got Alyssa Seeley is two-time current Paralympic champion. She was out last year in my first season with injury, but it's just come back this season. So she's definitely I think back on the up again after some sort of illness. And she's actually got EDS is obviously not a classifiable impairment for her, but pretty cool meeting it's the first time I've ever met another athlete with EDS. So we get along really well. And then last year I was beaten at World Champs by Melissa Stockwell, who came second, and then by Hayley Dans, who has been world champion ever since I've been in the sport. I think she's come from memory second at the last maybe two Paralympics behind Melissa. So it's kind of been that that rivalry between Hayley and Alyssa. And Melissa not too far behind. So I think Alyssa had a bit of a crash on the bike at World Champs. But we did. I think I was 1 second faster than her on the run, so pretty similar there. She's a bit of a faster swimmer than me, and I think on the bike we're not 100% sure because she crashed. So we probably really kind of test her time with that. But I think they're sort of the ones to beat pending anyone else slipping into the lineup in the next year.
It must be interesting for them, the amount of time they've been doing this sport, going back to Rio, then Tokyo. They've been around obviously for quite some time. That here comes this upstart Aussie who basically 3 years ago couldn't even swim, and now she's basically up there on par with us and beating us. Is that sort of a level that you can look at it just on the mentality of beating your rivals, that, that there's got to be something there from these three that perhaps they're just feeling it a little bit?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I think we're pretty lucky. I get along with all three of them really well, and I have so much respect for them, and I feel like I've got so much that I can learn from them. And Hayley and I caught up for coffee at Wells, and it was just nice to sort of have that chat about all things not triathlon life, bit of triathlon chat, just kind of nice, because I think there's such a there are, we're all rivals as soon as the, that gun goes. But at the end of the day, I know, I hope that they feel the same, but I feel like I really, look up to them and consider them to be, people that I just, really, I guess, aspire to be like, but also just have so much respect for. And where, we support each other when we're standing on that start line. Then as soon as the gun goes, we're business. At the end, we all give each other a hug and say, well done, no matter what. And I think it's really important that we don't get the chance to, I think they've got quite a good Paralympic training program over in the US, but over here, I train in a group of able-bodied athletes, which I absolutely love, but it does mean that I don't get a lot of exposure to other para athletes, and we get to see each other, at races for the Australian team and, at maybe one or two camps a year, but we don't get to see each other much. So I think for me, it's so special actually meeting people that, are on the kind of same path as me. And even though we've all got slightly different impairments, I think I really value spending time with them, and I hope that they feel the same. But I think there's always obviously going to be a bit of conflict as soon as you start beating people. But I think, hopefully I can sort of, really earn that spot. I think I'm not there yet. They're still giving me a good run for my money. I just hope that they kind of have that respect for me as well. And I think it can look a bit like I kind of came from nowhere. But I think behind that, everyone from my team knows how, we had those 2 years where I was just training without doing any international racing, just trying to get my classification sorted and trying to master the sport. And then the years of rowing before that, and, my time in badminton and running before that. So it seems like, that behind every overnight success is, a lot of years of hard work and support. So and it's always interesting. And from their perspective, I know I'd probably be pissed off if it's just really tough.
I see that. I mean, you're right, because I think that there are so many stories where people look at, say, quote, that overnight success. The one I always like to look back on is a Stephen Bradbury. Everybody always looks at it as everyone fell over, he won a gold medal, it's lucky. But if you know Stephen's story and everything that he sort of achieved and overcame to get to that one point, like you understand it a lot more. Touching on sort of, though, just in terms of paratriathlon in Australia, I mean, one thing in general, I thought paratriathlon had been at the Paralympics for a lot longer, but it only made its debut in Rio, so it's actually not been a Paralympic sport for that long. But are you sort of seeing, or at least hoping, that it will progress a lot more, that say that if we're talking in 10 years' time, post-Brisbane Olympics, that we're seeing a lot of younger para-athletes out there wanting to get into paratriathlon and that? And is there a lot being done right now to try and identify these athletes to try and get them into paratriathlon?
100%. That's something that I know, Oz Triathlon's been really focusing on, is kind of trying to get ahead of the game and, looking for, especially with the announcement of Brisbane, we are really looking at that. Cool, let's look at Brisbane and beyond. Whereas I think in the past, because it has been such a new sport, we've had a lot of sort of the average age. I know the average age for most para sports is a bit older, but I think for triathlon especially was quite a bit older. And that meant that people were aging out, and there wasn't, that new sort of grassroots talent coming through, that then when someone retired, there was someone ready to take their place who's been mentored by them. That kind of natural progression, we weren't really having that. Whereas now I know it's really starting to happen. The team's kind of getting younger and younger, and we get to meet all of the school-aged athletes that are coming through, and I think it's just great that they're now getting that support that maybe people who were sort of my age and older, that support just wasn't there because of it not being in the games. I think as soon as it's in the games, it means that there's funding. And I guess the other aspect also is that there's been, not all classifications have been involved in the games. So, for example, PTS3 women have never been in the games before. Next year, they can have 5. The top 5 can go along, but they obviously don't have their own race. They're racing upper category. And so I think as soon as we get all the classifications in, that's just going to open up to having a bigger team, and people knowing that they're not going to be told a couple of years out that their class isn't going to be in the games. Hopefully, they'll have that security.
Because it seems to me with the Paralympics, and I don't know if you know this or if this is what I'm about to say is true, that I know we say the Olympics, they're quoted to a certain amount of athletes, so therefore medals are quite hard to come by, particularly in the Summer Olympics. So, for example, if you're introducing a new sport and you have 2 new events, you've kind of got to remove 2 events from somewhere else because, and we're seeing a lot of that with certain sports, disciplines are getting removed because other sports are getting other ones. But it seems in the Paralympics that there is a lot more freedom to introduce different classifications, because obviously there are so many classifications in so many different sports. So that, to me, from the outside in, and again, I don't know if you know this or correct me if I'm wrong, seems that would open that door for the PT3 category to be introduced once it gets to a certain level, without then coming at the cost of another event in your sport or another sport, if all that makes sense.
That's it. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how all of it works, but I guess it's always going to be so hard because, say, you look at the Olympic triathlon, there's literally the men's and the women's, versus you look at triathlon and there's, all these classifications, and suddenly there's like 12 champions instead of 2. And so it's hard. And then you look at funding. So, for example, the Paris test event was the first time that that I've been given prize money for winning a race. And I think for a lot of athletes, I think most people on the Australian team, we've never been given any prize money before. Even winning a world championships, we don't get a cent. And so that was the first race where we got prize money. And that was something that the athlete committee really pushed for and did a great job with. And the organisers were so supportive and and World Triathlon was so supportive and managed to lock that in. But obviously they were saying at the briefing how they wish it could have been more. But at the end of the day, we had the same funding as what the able-bodied athletes would get. But obviously it's just a lot less because it has to be split amongst all of those classifications. Therefore, a champion's going to get a lot less than an able-bodied champion because there's, say 12 champions or more than that in some races.
Versus just men, women mixed.
That's it. That's it. So, but obviously we were absolutely stoked. Like we weren't getting, tens of thousands of dollars, but to us it was, it felt like that because it was just that recognition. And so, in terms of the Paralympics, I think you need more classifications because you look at something like rowing where I was so disadvantaged because everyone that uses their legs is in the same class. And you look at things like vision impaired athletes, there was no handicap for someone who was, just met the criteria as the minimum level of blindness versus someone who's completely blind. There's no handicap. Whereas in triathlon, we've got a few different vision impaired categories and they have a handicap and they've worked out what the fair kind of handicap is to put people on that level playing field. And that's the thing. If you've only got, 3 classifications in a sport, it's not going to be a level playing field for some athletes. And that's really why, at the end of the day, why I've had to switch sport was to find a classification where I'm not disadvantaged. And it's quite amazing because most of the athletes that so Hayley and Melissa are both above knee amputees. And then Alyssa is below knee amputee, but then has the some added neurological impairments. But somehow we all are very similar, which is so interesting. Because I never would have thought like, I'm the same as an above knee amputee.
Yeah.
But I'm more impaired in like maybe the swim. But then I'm like less impaired in the run. So it's interesting how it all kind of works out.
It's always fascinated me at the Paralympics of that because like it always blows my mind when I watch an event and I remember watching cycling one year and there was an athlete who had 2 below knee amputations up against an athlete who had say one and then like you would just see them compete against each other and as somebody from the outside, I'm looking going like, well, that seems so unfair. Like one person has clear advantage over the other. But at the end of the time, it didn't work out that way. And they was obviously able to it's fascinating. I don't know if I envy those people in those positions who have to classify it or I envy them because they're obviously very intelligent people that can work this out. But it's so just incredible how you can take what looks like something on the outside very obvious, but clearly isn't once you get to the bottom of it.
Exactly. And it's by no means perfect. I think some sports have it, down to more of a fine art than maybe newer sports. And you always get appeals. Like I've only heard of, I think, one in the time that I've been in triathlon. I don't think I heard of any in rowing, but appeals do happen. An athlete will come onto the scene and athletes or coaches or officials will look at them and go, this isn't right. Particularly if, they like say if I'd come in last year and suddenly I was, 5 minutes faster than, someone like Hayley who'd been going around for ages, that's when they would put up a bit of a red flag and go, have we definitely classified you right? And obviously maybe that can happen. Maybe someone can come out of the woodworks and be really fast, but it's probably pretty unlikely, especially when they're new to the sport. And so those appeals do happen. And then they have to look back through and see, if maybe they've missed something or what's sort of going on there. But I don't envy them at all. I know I think there's even going to be some changes to the system in triathlon based on the conversations that we had with the classifiers, because they obviously went, why don't we have a box that can classify someone with dystonia? Like dystonia should have its own box essentially. And that's something that I showed them. Well, cycling literally has this exact box. And I know some other athletes have run into that in the last sort of year since I've had it as well. So it's great that I think they just have to be open to making those changes and going, the system isn't perfect and it's always going to sort of be changing. But I think from my experience in triathlon, it seems especially coming from rowing where there weren't many classifications, it seems like they're doing a pretty good job. And I guess most people you can kind of like, you could look at them from afar and go, oh yeah, they'd be this class. Obviously neurological can be a little bit more difficult. And I think sometimes, especially, you know, people with a more visible disability like an amputation or spinal cord injury, if they're a full-time wheelchair user, they sort of look at someone like me and go, oh, how are you, like, you know, how are you as impaired as that person? But then I think what they don't realize is, you know, maybe an amputee doesn't have a reduced hand function, or maybe their muscles don't fatigue as much, or they've got, you know, still full range of motion in their other limbs. And it's really fascinating. I don't envy the people that have to make the systems.
It's so like you'd sit here for hours and just talk about just how unique and everything, and it's just it really
everyone
is fascinating.
should have their own classification.
Yeah, well, maybe, who knows? What for now? Obviously, we're recording this sort of at the end of 2023, sort of right near the end of December. But what is the process now for you to get to Paris? What do you need to do to get that ticket to get that test event and turn that into a Paralympic event?
So essentially, the RM qualification period is the start of July this year to the start of July next year. So that's 2 months before our race, and it's the best of our 3 races in that qualification period. And the top, I'm pretty sure they've left it as the top 9 in my classification go through. So at the moment, just based on those 3 races I did over this year, I'm ranked 3rd. And so I literally just have to pretty much stay in that top 9.
Stay in the top 9 and you're there.
Stay in the top 9. And so my score from Worlds was pretty good coming second. But then unfortunately my other 2 races, because they became a duathlon and an aquathlon, you only actually get 75% points if the format gets changed. So it's a bit of a bummer. That was my first 2 races for the qualification period, and they got changed. But essentially, I'll just look to do some more races next year, not just for qualification, but for race experience as well, and just sort of boost up my point score. But I think really the main thing is just staying healthy and injury free. Really.
Do you then play it safe to remain in the top 9, or is it a case of, well, you want to go to the Paralympics, but you also want to win the Paralympics? So like, I mean, kind of what's the balance there between now and that period?
Yeah. So I think we won't place a huge emphasis on, like, if I go into it ranked 1st or 9th, like it really doesn't, obviously I don't probably want to be 9th. I think our, you know, essentially it doesn't matter to me, sort of thing, essentially. It's really getting the race experience that I need, and making sure that it kind of fits in with my training cycles. So I think we've got a pretty good sort of race plan built out, but I'm definitely not going to be you know, chasing all the World Cups and that sort of thing to get points right up until, you know, the few weeks before the period ends or anything, because by then I really want to have that solidified and just have qualification off my mind, and really just focus on my preparation for the games, really. So I think it's really just get yourself, I think for us, for Australia, we need to be top 5 for them to definitely send us. After that, it's kind of up to their discretion. But essentially I just want to be in that top 5 so I get through and I just don't want to have to stress about it, really, so I can focus on training and performing on the day.
How are you feeling right now in terms of just where you're at and the confidence level about achieving that qualification?
I think really for me, like I said, the priority is just staying healthy. I think that's the biggest thing, especially having disabilities that can kind of make you a bit more prone to injuries and illness. So I think that's really my main priority, and just keeping myself happy and enjoying it at this point is really important. Obviously, end of the year, had a little bit of a not a full break, but was only sort of doing 1 session a day after World Champs, which for me is a nice break, and just sort of like regenerating, let the body heal from what was a pretty big 3 months of not much rest at all. And so just kind of letting myself have a bit of downtime really comparatively to what I normally do, focusing on kind of getting our equipment sorted, making sure I know exactly what I'm going to be using come Paris, so that we've got, months and months to test that and get comfortable with it and make any adaptations that we need. So yeah, really kind of stripped it back to the basics of focusing on technique and equipment, and then yeah, we'll start really cracking back in the new year to getting race ready.
Do you allow yourself like I don't know, a croissant here and there? Maybe listen to a bit of French music. Try some escargot. Like, do you get yourself in the French vibe at all between now and August?
Oh, you've got to. I absolutely am all for carb loading. Good croissant is great for your carb loading. Definitely need to practice my French speaking skills. That's one thing.
Oui.
Horrendous. Oui, oui. Bonjour, je m'appelle Anu.
That's all you need.
That's all you need. It got us by. It did get us by. People were quite friendly, which is nice. But I would like to know a little bit more. But obviously, traveling to a few different countries in the last couple of years, I end up getting a bit mixed up. And konnichiwa, bonjour.
Guten Tag. Where are we? What country? Yep. Just say g'day. Then they know where you're from, right?
Exactly. So it's pretty funny. But no, I love Paris. I've never been before. And it was just our course is stunning.
I was going to say that call. We had Matt Hauser on a few weeks back, and he was talking about it, and just looking at it, it looks pretty incredible.
It is absolutely stunning. I think I was doing the course recon the day before our race with Sally Pilbeam, one of the PTS4 athletes, and she just kept, we were in the swim, and she just suddenly grabbed my ankle, and I was like, what, are you okay? And she went, we're in Paris, we're swimming in the Seine. It was wild.
But this is what I appreciate about the organisers of the Olympics when they do this, because I think back to the very first triathlon in Sydney, and of course that's finishing at the Opera House. London obviously had a pretty epic one, and obviously since the para-triathlon, no disrespect to Rio and Tokyo, they weren't exactly iconic sort of landmarks that we had sort of in Sydney and London. So the fact that for para-triathlon, this will be like the real first time that you've had the freaking Eiffel Tower is there, right? Like the Champs-Élysées, like just all those icons that will be there. That's what you want, kind of, not just for you, but for the audiences watching this.
That's it. It's incredible. I think it's probably not the most practical venue in terms of, I know there's I haven't even been able to get tickets for anyone to come watch my race because I don't think there's much space for a grandstand, because it's literally, I think, like on a bridge essentially, and it's right in the center. And the fact that they're shutting the roads of like the busiest part of Paris off is just mind-boggling that they can do that. And I think that it was just that the organisers have actually been just incredible. And we had a bit of a chat from them at the test event saying, we wanted this to be the most special venue, and to really have it right in the heart. And they sort of said, we thought we were crazy, but we've somehow pulled it off. And obviously even just being able to get us to swim in the Seine that's been a mammoth effort, and they're still working on it to make sure that that really, no matter what, with the rainfall and everything, it doesn't get polluted again. It's just incredible. I think the other day we had a call, and they're organising to put a lift in down to the level that we start the swim on, because there's a lot of stairs down, or I think a steep ramp. So obviously for the wheelchair athletes and those with more severe like mobility difficulties, it's quite challenging to get down there. And so they just said, we're putting in a lift. I was like,
wow,
that is incredible dedication.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, I think in the race I didn't get much time to have a look around the course. It was just sort of head down, tail up. But looking at the photos after, and it's just like we're riding along the Champs-Élysées, and like all these amazing monuments. Every corner there was a different monument, and it's just in the background of a photo of us like running or riding, and it's like, gee, was I there? Like, it was just incredible. And there were so many amazing photographers that came out to the test event and just sent us all their photos after, and it was
looks good on the gram, basically.
Looks great on the ground. That is exactly, that was the only reason I wanted to do that race, get some good pictures for the gram.
It does. Get a few
profile
profile pictures and likes there. Fantastic. Anu, before we get to our final questions. Two things I want to touch on. First of all, we've introduced recently to Off the Podium a mascot. We have our very own mascot. As you can see behind me, I've got Frege, the Olympic mascot. I don't have the Paralympic mascot, but I believe it's Frege, but with a blade. So I believe,
yeah, it's very cool.
It's pretty epic. I need to get myself a Paralympic one to go with the Olympic one. But we've got our own mascot now. I want to introduce you to our mascot, and I want to first of all see if you can guess what he is before we.
This is incredible.
Can you tell his legs?
So he's a chair, right?
He's a chair, correct.
He's got 4 legs.
He's
Love
Cherry. This is Cherry. Now Cherry has been through a bit, as you can see. He's got a bit of a sore leg, but he's come back through. He's won a medal. Now we're trying to get from our guests ahead of Paris. Do you think Cherry's a bit inspirational? Can we take some inspiration from Cherry ahead of Paris?
Cherry seems like he's very resilient.
Yes.
And that's what I think I value the most. And I think, my story shows that I've not had the smoothest of journeys. And I think I've had to kind of, keep getting up when, maybe been told, 99% of people would have given up. And I reckon, Cherry's learnt, I don't know what sport, he's into, but
I don't think we haven't really.
Quite interesting to, quite interesting learning how to coordinate.
That is true. We've never really designated a sport for Cherry.
Yeah, maybe a multi-sport athlete.
Maybe, well, I'm an advocate. I mean, this is why I love triathlon. I'm an advocate for multi-sports. I mean, I'm a massive modern pentathlon fanboy. So, and when it comes to winters, Nordic combined, I'm huge on all. I'm huge on sports where you've got to do multiple sports in one. Like I
love that. I'm with you.
But I mean, I'm glad we're getting that because he's very happy. Like he's got he's damage here. He's multinational, being Canadian and Australian. So there's that as well. But like we're going to work out a way to get multiple Cherries so that we can send you one and then you can use him as a good luck charm in Paris. How would that be?
That would be absolutely incredible. I would love that. I would proudly have him travel the globe with me and come over to Paris.
Beautiful. That's what we want. And then on the gold medal dais, when the tears are coming down the cheek because of Advanced Australia Fair, think back to this beautiful face about where it all started.
Exactly. Back to the amazing Cherry's resilience.
Exactly. It's medal in hand. Good. All right.
Love it.
I like that. Good. That's what we wanted to hear.
My kind of mascot.
Good. That's exactly it. He's the people's mascot. He is the people's mascot.
I love that.
That is what Cherry is. The other thing I want to touch on, this is one particularly for our video viewers. I'm absolutely loving the room you're in. And I'm seeing there's art, there's colour. I mean, even your chair, is that llamas on your chair?
Good old llama chair.
It's amazing.
An aerosol piece I did.
So you did that. That is you. That you are the artist.
I was quite little. These were all me. So this one was called Buddha Pig. Wise old pig, because I loved pigs when I was little. That was good old 2009. I was about 13 then. And then, those two were both ones I did, sort of kids ones that I did, when I was, 13 or 14.
Is there still that passion? Are you still into art at all?
I am. I haven't done any for, quite a while, sort of, dabble in it here and there. But I actually, got a merit in Year 12 visual arts. Take you on a journey.
Please do. I love this. For our audio listeners, check out our YouTube video because I love this journey. Wow, that's amazing. What's that?
Yeah, not great for the podcast viewers, but this was my Year 12 art piece. So it sort of starts in the center of me as a baby. I called it Anu Evolution, the evolution of Anu. So it starts in the middle of me as a baby, then 4 of me as a toddler, and these were all silhouettes that I traced of photographs of me throughout my childhood. So you've got me with a pram with some bunny ears on and doing general toddler things. And then the blue ones are me playing the cello, violin. I was an Irish dancer, so a photo.
Of course you were. That was my next question.
Why not? And then the one down the bottom was me with a little squirrel because I loved animals. And then the next 4 are me right up to the age of 18 when that was me on a unicycle, stilt walking, doing Diablo, and then jumping into the water. I was quite into circus. I'm
so disappointed that 100 years ago when Paris last had the Olympics, they had artistic medals. They had literature and painting and sculpture. Why do we not have these? Because then you could have been ticking off multiple sports at the Paris Olympics.
Outrageous.
I know.
start a petition to bring it back, I
It
reckon.
really should be. That's incredible. I realize, which actually makes me very excited then, even more so for these final questions. Because, I mean, as always, these final questions are based on a questionnaire that Team Canada got ahead of the Rio and the Paralympic, the Pyeongchang Olympics and Paralympics. And as part of this element, we always say, every guest we have on the show, there is a drawing element if you so do wish.
Ooh.
So on this questionnaire, they had the option to do a couple of drawings. So, for example, you draw your dream Olympic medal, what the coolest Olympic medal would look like. There's draw a picture of a Canadian animal, or I guess an Australian animal, or as you said, you like animals, just draw a picture of an animal. And then there's draw a picture of yourself. Now, we've put this challenge out. We had Jeff Dunn, Australian breaker, on recently. He's a bit of an artist, and he said that I can draw a picture of myself and Cherry breaking. So if you wanted to draw a picture of you and Cherry doing triathlon,
I like this.
there's an option.
You're on. You're
Okay, good. Because you've got the skills. And I think that this would turn out quite well.
Look, no promises of it turning out well, but it'll be interesting and it will be there. I can
All
guarantee.
right. I like putting challenges to our guests to see if they come through, because then it's competitive against our guests.
I like it.
We've had this before.
Added layer.
We've had guests voting like who had the better drawing. I love it.
This is pressure now.
They're all the pressure. That's what we like here, Anu. Love it. Let's start with the questions though.
All right,
What is to you the greatest Olympian of all time is?
Oh,
Straight with the hard one.
yeah, I know. Let's just go straight in. Olympian or Paralympian?
Of course, absolutely.
All right, I'd have to go Paralympian. I'm quite
Please
biased.
do. Yes.
Who am I going to say? Look, I feel like you can't go past Kurt Fernley.
Mm.
I think performance-wise, obviously incredible. I think just what he's done for the Paralympic movement and really building that and giving us that sense of pride. I think I've never met him, but I've listened to him speak a lot and watch him in a lot of programs. And I think I really see him as such a kind of wise leader in the Paralympic movement and in the disability community. And yeah, he's one of those people that I really just really look up to. And I think to me, being a para athlete, being an elite athlete, being a Paralympian is so much more about the actual performance, because I think sport can be so selfish. Like, the times you don't get to spend with your family and friends and that you've got to prioritize your training and traveling can be very, very selfish. And I think something I'm very aware of is kind of using my platform for good and trying to create some positive change. And I think, yeah, Kurt's one of those people that I really look up to as a role model and someone that has really left a huge legacy.
Great answer. I love it. Kurt is an absolute legend. So absolutely love that answer. First Olympics you remember watching, or Paralympics again. We'll go on that. First Olympics, Paralympics you do remember watching.
Ooh, I reckon it was probably the first ones that I was really engaged in. I'd say was London. I remember it being on at school, and just we kept skipping out of class to to try and watch it because it was on in the library. So we just kind of keep going, oh yeah, I need to borrow another book. Oh, I need to go to the bathroom. Oh, I need to go to the nurse. We'd run into the office and watch it. Yeah, that was incredible. I think the Paralympics GB Yes I Can campaign that really
that was amazing. Yeah, that song and everything that came from that was great. Yeah,
incredible. So I think that's so memorable and something that I still probably remember. Probably some of my strongest memories of the Paralympics is really because of that campaign coming out, and something that I think even now, so many years later, is still very relevant and something I really like watching.
I'm always so 50-50 on that question because I love hearing our guests tell about those Olympic memories and when they first watch it. But the other side of it always makes me just feel so old now, given that so many people are like, oh yeah, London was my first, or like I remember Rio, and here I am going like, yeah, I remember as a 5-year-old watching Barcelona, so I mean, it's just like, great. I need to get more legends on this show who are a lot older than me to make me feel good about myself. And you talk about like school, like, I mean, I was 13 during Sydney, and that was, of course, when basically all of Australia got a 2-week holiday. So that I sadly didn't come home. I live in Sydney now, but I sadly didn't go to the Olympics. But I remember just being glued to the television for 2 weeks in my tiny little Hobart house watching them. So... but hey, look, I'm old. I get it. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, 100% teleportation.
Yes.
Yeah, genius. Like, I just think how easy would overseas travel be? Like going to a race, you could
Yep.
literally just get ready at home.
Yeah.
Presumably, you'd be able to. Ideally, I'd like to be able to take my equipment with me in the teleportation portal.
Of course.
Be able to, just literally have all my stuff ready, pack it all up, and then just like poof, I'm there at the start line. Amazing.
Wake up in your own bed and then compete in the Olympics at like 2.
Exactly. Don't need hotels.
Yeah.
Don't need, 24 hours on a plane. Absolutely magical. Plus the amount of money you would save. Far out.
Exactly.
And money, you could just visit the whole world with no effort.
It would be incredible. Although I think airlines probably wouldn't like that. They
Probably
might
not,
go bankrupt. But
that's all right.
they gouge us enough.
That's the thing.
Alan Joyce.
Money to last a life.
Looking at you, Alan. Don't think he's a CEO anymore. He's off in retirement, isn't he? Your favorite ice cream flavor is?
Ooh. Well, that's stressful. It really depends on the day. I'm very indecisive, if you couldn't tell. I think it really depends.
I love that answer of it's very stressful for your favorite ice cream flavor. Didn't understand the stress of that one until we ask it.
Man, I know. Yeah, literally, I'm not going to sleep tonight. I hope you realize it ruined my whole week of sleeping.
You're welcome.
I think I quite like Turkish Delight. I've had some good Turkish Delight ice cream.
Yes.
And they used to sell them at the supermarket, actually. One of those, I think it was like Cadbury's or something, and they did like a caramello flavor. And I don't think they make it anymore, which is quite devastating because I loved it.
But that's like, this is the thing about ice cream, because like I'm not honestly huge on like chocolates and candy and stuff like that, but ice cream is my vice. But like I love those flavors. I remember like when Arnott's would experiment with some flavors and they had an iced Vovo flavored ice cream.
That is wild.
So good.
Would have been incredible.
It was so good. But that's the genius of marketing, right? You put it out for like a month or two and then here we are talking about it years later. And Arnott's, if you're listening, or, Cadbury's Turkish Delight, Caramello.
Bring it back.
Yep. It's like the McRib, right? That's back at the moment, isn't it? Like, come on. There you go.
Caramilk as well. Remember when Caramilk was selling for like some stupid amount of money because it was rare, and now
they're like on eBay, weren't they? For like,
lettuce. It was actually like lettuce is going for thousands of dollars. Like it's bonkers. But yeah, like Turkish Delight ice cream, people would probably pay that because I don't know when we last had it, but I reckon it was a good decade ago. So
putting it out there to the universe, and it's going to come back.
That's where my money's going to go. When I learn how to teleport, all my money that I normally spend on airfares and accommodation.
Turkish Delight ice cream. Or just start your own Turkish Delight ice cream company and then reap the benefits from all the demand.
Great idea. That is how I'll fund my career, I reckon.
You're welcome. This is educational off the podium and informative. You come on here and you get career advice.
Career advice. I love it.
Yep, exactly. That's our new MO on this show moving forward. If you were a baseball player, what would your walk-up music be?
Oh, man, this is more stressful than the ice.
Do you need some inspiration? Let's get him out. There he is. He's Cherry.
He's there.
He's smiling at you.
What are your words of wisdom, Cherry?
I used to be like, whisper into my ear, like something like that.
Does.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm so torn. This is so hard. I'm kind of, for some reason, going the complete opposite way. Thinking that dun 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 dun.
No, Chariots of Fire.
Not
Yeah, you wanting to go into the start like slow motion. I feel like that's just like I'm getting ready.
Stop.
Yeah.
Which quite funny, think about it. Everyone's going there and it's like this pump up music,
Do the Mr. Bean version from the London Olympics though. Remember the whole like boom, 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 boom. Like do that version and I see it.
All right, it's on. Lock it in. That's the answer.
Hey, never had that answer before. I like it. That's very inspiring. Have that in front of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. You'll be laughing with Cherry. Like, I mean, it's just everything's ticking the boxes. The best nickname you've ever been called is?
Oh man, these are tricky.
Thanks, Team Canada. You're getting some love for this. Tricky questions.
Far out. Oh, that's a real great question.
Do you have many nicknames? Is this something that's kind of...
Yeah, I think because obviously like Anu, it's quite it does lead to a few nicknames. So I quite often get like Nunu, Noodle.
No.
Anubis was quite a good one. Quite like that.
Do you ever get Christine Anu?
Anu, yeah, that's one that's come up quite a few times. I think probably I don't have any really funny nicknames. Like used to call me like the Nunu Monster, which was the vacuum cleaner off Teletubbies.
Yeah.
In the
Okay. I
day.
knew that sounded familiar when you said that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that was
Yeah.
quite good. And then kind of like Noodles turned into like it was like Noodle Bug, and then it's like now it's like Doodle Bug. Doodle Bugster, like you get further and further away.
Yeah.
I think probably the
Tangents.
funniest thing with my name was that so it's spelled ANU. That's it. And obviously if you were to say, oh, I'm going to Anu's house, but you forget the apostrophe, as kids often did at primary school, it becomes something else. And so I learned how to spell my name off the back of toilet doors, because obviously I could recognize my name, but couldn't yet read or write. So I would see my name on the back of a toilet door, and I was like, oh, I remember like one day we were in like Victoria or something, and I was like, Mum, my name's written on the back of the toilet door. And I was like, I promise I don't have a pen, like it wasn't me. And Mum was just like, that's
Yep.
one that you'll learn when you're a bit older.
That's the name. That's definitely you.
That's me.
It's always funny that the innocence of childhood, right? Like just
Oh,
the innocence of these words. Yeah. Okay.
It's classic. It's classic. Very educational.
Very
And then it came up
educational.
in year 9 when someone put the connection when we were, in an anatomy lesson, and someone went, "Oh, that looks like your name." I was like, yeah, "Thank you. Let's just
Thanks for
keep
that.
a bit on the down, I reckon."
Yep. Where is it? What's the origin of Anu? It's where does that generally originate from?
So it's quite multicultural. Mum actually got it from it's quite like Christine Anu. It was quite a common surname up in the Torres Strait Islands. And I was born in Cairns, so I think Mum
Right.
kind of heard it from meeting a few people from the Torres Strait Islands, and decided that she was going to was going to go Anu for a girl and Anu for a boy.
Ah,
But most people I've met, I think I actually met someone at the airline check-in at Adelaide Airport the other week when I was going to camp. The lady checking in went, "We've got the same name," and I thought she meant, "Oh, Francis." And I looked at it, and it was Anu. So she was only the second person I've met with the same name. And she was, where did she say she was from? I have a feeling she was like had some Vietnamese heritage from memory.
right.
But the others that I've like met or heard of have been Indian, so it's quite common in India.
I was going to say, like, because it must be like a bitch when you go to one of these places and they got the nameplates, right? You could probably never find your name at like
Never.
Disneyland,
I've literally
right?
got the little elephant that said they didn't have your name with the little sad.
Which reminds me of that Simpsons episode when it's like, Bard, bored, bird, who's bored? It's like, bored, we're out of board nameplates, bored. So,
But the good thing is, Australian National University (ANU) is the same as my name. So I've got a bit of got my friend to go over and get me some ANU merch a few years ago. So I do have my own custom apparel in a way.
I like that. That does
It's
work.
got to be perks,
Very smart. Very, very smart. In a movie about your life, who would play you?
Oh, goodness. They just get harder and harder, don't they?
Did we just ask, like, what's your favorite color or something? Is that easier?
Yeah, right. Things I've actually thought about before. My default answer. Oh, wow. Oh, I literally have no idea. That is so stressful.
Who's like this is where I feel like you just go to just like, I mean, like, I'm going to say Brad Pitt, clearly, Chris Hemsworth, clearly, we all resemble each other.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, you can go whatever route you want. Or we can pass on if you don't want to.
Goodness. Yeah, if I'm going to regret whatever I say, I'm going to come up with some silly answer and I'm not going to sleep, It's already been disturbed with the ice cream, and, now it's got even more.
I'll give an answer. I
All right,
see a slight Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, yeah.
I can see a bit of Reese Witherspoon there. So
All right. Yeah, I'll take that.
okay, all right,
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
good on you. All right, we'll take that. Reese Witherspoon coming soon. The Anu Francis story to cinemas this summer. If you weren't I actually might know the answer to this because obviously you touched on a little bit about what you were studying to become. But if you weren't an athlete, what would you be?
Yeah. So I think if I didn't get kicked out of my first degree, I'd be a vet by now, which was always my childhood dream. I think, yeah, now, I'm studying to be an exercise physiologist. So that's I guess that's probably kind of my answer, really. But I always wanted to also be like an actor and I also wanted to run away with the circus. That was a big one. I did my year 12 research project on essentially could I join Cirque du Soleil? Um,
Wow. Well, based on how quickly you generally adapt and learn new things, I think you might be there in a few years' time.
exactly. So that's probably, next on the cards. Either, doing circusy things or as a musician sort of singer in one of their bands would be quite cool. So probably performing. I think performing is probably the thing I haven't done much of since I left school, but it's still a huge passion of mine and something that, if you could say, will you be a full-time musician or a full-time actress once you finish sport, I'd be like,
Look out for you on Home and Away in a few years' time, basically.
Marvelous.
Okay.
Top pick there.
All right, Summer Bay, hang out with Alf, all the things that we want. Your guilty pleasure snack is?
Ooh, probably. So I've got two. My savory one would be cracked pepper jats.
Ooh, yes.
Obsessed with them, and I kind of justify that they're healthier than chips. Hopefully we'll go with that. They're baked not fried, apparently, according to the advertising. So that's good advertising there. And then my sweet one would be Daryl Lee's milk chocolate block that has got it's called licorice all sorts. So it's literally got black licorice in it.
Nice.
Mind blown.
We're getting a lot of answers recently about Daryl Lee. Now, I thought Daryl Lee disappeared, but obviously it still exists.
No, so the shops disappeared.
Yeah.
They just couldn't afford to keep the shops going, but they now stock to the major supermarkets. I don't know if they definitely do like Woolworths, Big W. I'm not sure if they do Coles. They might. They've just literally gone to that and their business has absolutely boomed.
Because I'm old enough to remember the stores. I remember.
Yeah, I remember them.
It was always a bit of like a treat when it was like mum and dad are taking you to Daryl Lee because it's a bit fancy, right? But no, it's been a long time, and all of a sudden we're getting a surge of answers on this show of Daryl Lee.
Yeah.
So okay.
Hey, there you go. It's good. It's pretty good. Like this block, you just wouldn't expect it. Obviously, like the chocolate bullets sort of they work, but you just wouldn't have thought of just having a whole block of it. But
making me hungry.
Sorry, I'm very sorry.
No, it's nearly dinner time. We're recording this, so it's fine. Once I hit stop, it's time to eat. The most recent TV show that you binge watched is?
Ooh, okay. So when I was in England, I was absolutely obsessed because their TV is amazing. So I was watching Gogglebox. Gogglebox, but also Celebrity Gogglebox, and I think there was something like 15 seasons of the regular one and like maybe 5 or 6 seasons of the celebrity. Like, there was a lot of it, but in 3 months, it kind of just became my comfort watching. And I think I got through the vast majority of it, which was quite impressive, as well as watching RuPaul's Drag Race. Ironically, I watched like the Down Under one while I was, but I also love watching like the UK one as well. So they're probably my latest ones.
So we're getting that audition out there for Channel 10 if they're listening for you to be on Aussie Gogglebox then, basically.
Oh, it would be my best friend and I. It would be quality content.
There you go.
Quality content.
It's a shame it's not a Channel 9 show because that would be perfect in lead up to the Olympics, right? Like kind of getting Olympians and Paralympians on the show to watch stuff. But if Channel 10 want to eke into the marketing ahead of both the Olympics and Paralympics.
That's it.
Could we sit there with Cherry on the couch next? Would Cherry be watching with?
Perfect. 100%. There'd be great commentary coming from Cherry, I reckon.
He's talkative. He's just a bit shy at the moment.
Yeah. Just got to get comfortable.
Your favorite place in the world to compete is?
Ooh, great question. What have I liked so much? I reckon. Like, I'd have to kind of be a bit lame and say, like, my favorite race is Silver Sands back in Adelaide. It was my first ever triathlon. And I've done it every year since. It's the one race that I've actually, it's normally the only South Australian race that I get to do now that I'm on the international circuit. So I'm going to, try and do that again next year. But it's just the most picturesque, right along the Esplanade. The run is on sand, which isn't super fast, but it's just stunning. And I think just having that, being able to have all of my teammates around me, and having my coach there and everything is it's so special. But then internationally, I actually I love Wales, like Swansea. This year obviously it wasn't as great because the weather was a bit shite. And we didn't get to do the bike course. And they had to change the bike course to be on concrete. It was very kind of convoluted, whereas before it was a very big out and back loop, which was quite fun because you get up some good speed, which is my forte. But apparently they had to change the course. The rumor was that we blocked off a prison exit. And the prison buses couldn't get in and out for the duration of the triathlon. So that was the reason that they told us they had to change.
Hang on, I need to stop you there. Sorry, there's so many questions around that. Like, is there an emergency? Like, I mean, what, a triathlon takes, like a couple of hours out of the day? Like, I mean, do they, maximum security prisons be transferred? Can't they just block them off for a couple of hours? I mean, they're in prison. They're not going anywhere.
You would have thought so. To be fair, I think it would have been blocked off for a while because it's quite late.
But where are they going? They're prisoners.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure.
It's not like they're going down to the shops.
Yeah, maybe they're going to miss their lawn bowls or something. I'm not sure. Maybe they just don't get in the way.
It's a lame excuse, Wales. Lame.
That is what we said. It was probably that they just didn't want to pay to close the road or something. But
if it was a hospital or a police station, but a prison.
Prison. But
wow.
That was the excuse we got given. And now the course is not good. And so, but what I liked about it last year was just, obviously it was my first race. It was quite special. I had my aunt there who I hadn't seen since I was 10. So like almost 20 years I hadn't seen her. And she came and watched me race, which was so special. This year, my best friend and my aunt came again, and my best friend actually came along, who's obviously from Adelaide. And so that was magical. And just the support of the locals was incredible. Like they just really lined the streets, and a bunch of just, spectators took videos of me and photos and sent them to me, found me on Instagram, sent them to me, and said, "Oh, I love watching your race," and here's this, and it was just amazing. The Welsh people are the friendliest people I've ever met. I love their accent. It's always been my favorite accent. But they're just so friendly. I love it. So I think just in terms of like probably my favorite place I've gone, and I think it just kind of spreads into the fact that the race is also just a really nice vibe if you're really supported.
Fantastic. Love it. Just need to fix their prison entries apparently. That's
that's the idea. And their weather, because last year they had a massive heat wave, and then this year it was gale force winds and torrential downpours. So they could
interesting. Wales is not a place that I often would think about the word heat wave, but
no, it was genuinely warm. Very
warm. Okay.
Yeah.
Learning a lot today. Growing up, who was your favorite sports team?
Ooh.
I was going to ask that, like, as the Adelaide, there's usually one of two teams. But again, if you follow AFL or not, but that's
the thing. Like, I'm not huge on AFL. Like, if I had to pick one, I'd go the Crows. And now that the AFLW is a big thing, like I'm 100%.
Crows are the queens of the AFLW, of course.
100%. I'm very into it. The only time I've ever gone and voluntarily watched really any group. I don't really watch I don't really watch team sports, to be fair. So the only time I've actually gone and watched a team sport was I think it was when we had the AFLW grand final in Adelaide. And yeah, went and watched that, and that was
that like the 50,000 one, the big, because we don't talk about that because they beat Carlton and they're my team, so we just we move on from that one. But
pretty much,
I'm glad you were there to experience it.
I remember I went primarily because G Flip was performing there.
Okay.
And so that got me there, and then I actually enjoyed watching it way more than I ever expected.
Positive.
Now I would actually go and watch their matches.
Went to a G Flip concert and an AFLW game broke out.
Marvelous. Exactly. Just it was a bonus essentially. And it was $10 tickets to the grand final.
Bargain. Yeah.
Bizarre. And there were not anywhere near as many people as there should have been. But that was really the start of it. And I think I'm so stoked now because you look at it and they sell out. They should be at bigger stadiums because they sell them all. I think we've come a long way. That was only a few years ago, and man, we've come a long way.
Well, we're seeing that with so many, obviously, female sportsmen. What have we just seen with the Women's World Cup, of course, in Australia and everything that we saw. But no, AFLW going great. But as a Carlton fan, not so great. But that's just the story of my life. It's fine. Your favorite?
Too late to jump ship,
I'm too loyal. I know, you can't do that. That's like, sorry.
Forbidden.
That's like, I mean, that's like if your mum said to you tomorrow, like, no, you're not my daughter anymore. Like,
Look,
you know, I hope she hasn't said that. Like, that's, but like, just.
if she gets a better offer though,
True. Well, true. Cherry's cherry. I mean,
That's
actually,
exactly. I'd have to up my game and, try and, you got to earn your spot in life, really.
You do. You very much true. Your favorite video game is?
Oh, I'm like not a video game person, but if you can count it as video games, I loved Sims when I was growing
100%.
up.
Great video game.
I was not like obsessed like a lot of people. I was the classic, I'd get the hand-me-down expansion pack.
I'm still a Sims 1 guy. Like, I know they're up to like probably Sims 20 by now, but like Sims 1 is just still to me little tiny stick figures, great.
So good. See, I think I was 2. I think I bought the 1 and then got given the 2 quite early on. So I was quite with that. Just, Sims Pets was always.
Yeah, I was going to say there was Pets expansion for that one, wasn't there?
Yeah. But I was just the classic, people that would spend. I remember I go around to one of my friends' houses and she wanted to be an architect. So she would like build the amazing house. And I was like, this is so boring. Just let me lock them in a pool without a ladder. Let me set fire to their house. Like
we all were, let's be honest. It was always freaking Mortimer Goth, the weird neighbor that would always pop over and you're like, piss off, Mortimer, get in the pool, take away the ladder.
Oh, so yeah, that's the thing. And I would just have no doors on the house. I'd be like, no visitors, Yeah. That was a bit of a weird child, but
we all did it. It's like Grand Theft Auto, right? Like you have those moments where you're like, I'm going to obey the road rules and I'm going to pull up at a red light and I'm not. And then within 5 minutes, screw it, I'm running down people, I'm breaking cars, I'm doing whatever.
I've only played it once, but I was exactly that person. I just remember absolutely just like wetting myself laughing. I was just breaking all the rules and it was so fun. As a big GTA, that's my biggest thing as a big GTA fan is when you get people to play it who have never played it. And it's always that reaction of like literally, oh my God, I'm running over people. This is hilarious. Like it's that level of like, yep, this is the game. This is what you do. If that helps you then function normally in society and not do that on the roads, then
you're 100% it. Like if you've got that urge to remove swimming pool ladders and murder people, do it on a video game.
Exactly. So that you've got it out your system, you can go and,
compete at the Paralympics.
Exactly. Marvelous.
Exactly. That's what we need more in the world. That's all I'm saying. Last question for you today, Anu. What's one thing you cannot live without?
Oh, finishing on an easy one.
Always.
I feel like, I'd be very torn between sport / like physical activity because I go absolutely insane if I can't exercise. If I don't have my my routine and my endorphins, my dopamine hit. But then the other one would be animals.
Do you have any pets?
I've got 2 rabbits.
Rabbits. Okay. Rabbits. Love it.
They're pretty big. So I've got Timothy and Pansy. They're 5 to 6 kilos.
Wow.
They're bigger than your average cat. And they used to live inside in the house, just free range. They'd go out in the garden in the day. But they decided that they wanted to move outside. And so they now live outside. They've got burrows. We've built them an amazing undercover shelter area out of an old table and some hay bales. And they live the absolute life. They are so spoiled.
Can you include them in your drawing with you and Cherry?
All right. Yeah, done.
Okay. I if you need notes, I'm happy to send you notes. But like that's amazing because like I had rabbits as a kid and we had like an outdoor sort of environment for them and they were huge. And I don't think I realized that rabbits grew that big.
Yeah.
I had like the white one with like the red eyes, like, kind of
Timothy's an albino. He's a New Zealand giant.
Right.
And then Pansy is a Flemish giant. They can get huge. Like I think they can get up to like 16 to 20 kilos.
Wow.
Yeah, like they're the size of almost
a
large dog. Yeah, like more than a medium dog. They're huge. But she is a cross. So we're not sure what she's crossed with, but obviously something a bit.
A dog?
Yeah, probably.
Just a horse?
A small horse,
That's crazy. How long do like rabbits live for? Like, what's the life expectancy of a rabbit?
A lot longer than people expect. The bigger they are, the longer they I can't think generally today. The longer they generally live. I think that some of them can be like Timothy's breed is sort of like average 10 to 12 years for a giant.
Wow. Okay.
And then the smaller breeds I think are more sort of like 6 to 8 years, more like 8.
That's still decent innings though. Like I thought they were like a rat where they only last like a couple of years, but no, okay.
Yes, I had rats before them, and yeah, that was 2 to 3 years, and heartbreaking. I was like, I can't do that again. You get so attached to them, and then they're just not around long enough. But rabbits are pretty similar commitment to a dog or a cat, really.
Crazy. I like that. I like the diversity of the more rabbits out there, I say.
Oh, I think so. They don't bark like.
True. They don't.
Genius. They're vegan. They're so good for the planet. They do your weeding for you.
People talk about bees being good for the environment. You know,
get yourself a rabbit. You know.
Yeah, just don't let them out in the wild. I mean, there's a bit of a problem in the Australian animals there. Keep them in a cage. The one time you can say keep an animal in a cage and it's good.
In your backyard cage, I reckon. You know, in your house, like an indoor cat. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I know this has been a lot of fun for people who want to follow your journey between now and Paris and beyond. Social media, where can people check out everything that you're going to be up to between now and the Paralympics?
Absolutely. So my most active platform will be on Instagram. My handle is Anu_Francis. And I'm also about to launch my website. So I'll stay tuned on the Instagram and I'll put a link up to that once it's launched.
Beautiful. I love it. We'll be sure to tag you in everything along the way. But this has been an absolute blast. I'm seriously thrilled about this drawing. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna be watching out for it every second of every single day. But we're going to be so excited to see that journey between now and Paris and everything that will come with that. And we obviously wish you the best of luck. And we'll get you back on the show with a nice shiny gold medal around your neck. How does that sound? That
sounds amazing. And we'll have to take a photo of Cherry wearing this medal.
Hey, with the Eiffel Tower, like
100%. If he's got, he's gonna have to go to the gym in the meantime though, just to be able to, get that sort of neck strength to be able to hold it up.
Yeah, true.
Be quite, not that I'm doubting him, but bit of recovery to do, I think.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a flop, doesn't he?
Got to be in. Oh yeah, that's the thing. That's going to be no good. But that's okay. You've got 9 months, so that's time enough.